Some could argue that democracy is the greatest experiment to ever fail, and Jesus was the greatest socialist to ever be murdered. Yeah, I'm going to say it. Am I a socialist? No, I'm just a realist. I'm a man who believes that effort should equal reward, not membership.
Do you remember that sensation when you got that first paycheck and you looked at it and you said, there must be some mistake? And you said, no, there's no mistake. Here's the rest over here. We took off for this, for that. We took off for the cruise missiles, for the new tactical air surface missiles. We took off for the B-1 bomber and the B-2 bomber and all that. What we call the federal taxes, though.
Let me just play this last video clip, which is a great clip, and he's going to explain, imperialism. And let's listen.
If you say U.S. imperialism or Western imperialism, they'll say, you're being ideological, aren't you? What are you talking about? Oh, do you have a conspiracy theory? Which reminds me, there's something I want to add to this lecture, but I forgot to. Just wait a second, since we're waiting for the sound. Okay. Imperialism, what they talk about in academia, you can't talk about imperialism. You cannot write your master's thesis or your PhD. If you go to your advisor and say, I want to do something on Western imperialism in Central America. And they'll say, we don't like to do ideological things. You have to do scientific, empirical stuff, and that's not a real subject. So you say, well, can I do something on development theory and dependency theory? Oh, yeah, you could do that. So you call it development theory. But if you start talking about the realities of imperialism when you write that, they'll say, well, it seems to me you're being ideological again, not realizing how ideological they are in rejecting the terrible realities of what's going on in the world. Imperialism is when the ruling elites, the dominant interests of one country, control the land, the labor, the resources, the technology, the markets, and the wealth, the financial structure of another country, to the detriment of the ordinary people in the other country, and often to great cost to the people in the metropolitan country, in the imperialist country too. In other words, we aren't the benefits of U.S. imperialism in Central America. We help pay a lot of the overhead costs. We pay high taxes so they can have their global military machine to keep control of everything. See the media, they start clicking when you gesture. That's when they go ahead, take a picture. Right? Is that right? I was talking for 10 minutes, the guy didn't do anything. But the minute I started listening, I'm going to Besides which, you're blocking Senator Garland's view, and that's really okay. Right. We pay, in terms of the high taxes, to pay for that global military machine which controls, which is set up. It really costs a lot of money to have 14 now, 14 aircraft carrier units. You don't get just an aircraft carrier. When you send out an aircraft carrier, you have to have destroyers and cruisers and all sorts of surveillance planes and protect it. It's a whole force. 14 aircraft carrier forces. 300 major military bases all around the world. We pay that. When you worry about scholarships and you're not getting it, or high taxes or this, that, you got to understand that's where that money's going. And you're paying. You pay palpably. A lot of you I know have already worked and earned your first paycheck. Do you remember that sensation when you got that first paycheck and you looked at it and you said, there must be some mistake? And you said, no, there's no mistake. Here's the rest over here. We took off for this, for that. We took off for the cruise missiles, for the new tactical air surface missiles. We took off for the B-1 bomber and the B-2 bomber and all that. What we call it federal taxes, though. Well, that's what you're paying for, and that's coming palpably right out of the lives of our people. When we don't have money for roads, and we don't have money for hospitals, when we have to cut rehabilitation clinics for drug addicts. And we don't have the money for it. We don't have money for textbooks in schools in some parts of this country. It's because that money is going to pay for the overhead costs of imperialism to protect and maintain a U.S. force throughout the world, to protect that class that George Bush belongs to protect his friends of that class. And to protect that class, you have to protect that system that serves that class. And to protect that system, you have to protect that military, that global military establishment that protects that system. We also pay in terms of the export of our jobs. Our jobs go to Central America, Asia, Africa. And General Motors closes down plants and eliminates jobs. What GM doesn't tell you is that when they close plants down here, they're opening plants in Indonesia and Brazil and South Korea and those places. For 15 years I've been hearing about General Motors closing plants, General Motors taking a beating, General Motors laying off workers, General Motors. That's it. What you don't know, yet last month.
Roger beat, set, go.
I like this crap. It's rubbish. It's garbage. Go away. Why then?
The Fortune 500 came out, and the biggest, richest industrial corporation in America is what? General Motors. General Motors is the biggest. And General Motors now says, we're not an American corporation. We're international. We don't belong to any one country. Of course they don't want to belong to any one country. They want to be above the laws of all countries. They're up there. But when their interests are at stake, then they get very socialistic. They come to the public treasury, to the public taxes, and they ask for our money to build up the public military forces to protect their private wealth. That's what imperialism is about.
So that was, I think, very well said, and I even had a libertarian on my show last week, Dave Smith, talking about how our government is engaged in the greatest wealth transfer, and I thought he was going to say trying to redistribute wealth to the poor. He said the exact opposite. He said the wealth is going from the working class up to the oligarchs, and that's exactly where we are in this country, and people, it's crazy to be that people can't see it, but that was a great breakdown of how it works. Now,
absolutely.
What
and really importantly, like, you know, the loss of jobs, deindustrialization. I think sometimes people don't connect this to empire. Like,
God, I said like your dad.
Finally, the right is waking up to the fact that there are problems for elites, it would seem, if you export your entire industrial base abroad. It's like, whoa, maybe the Chinese don't like being abused and insulted, and they decide to not sell you rare earths elements, which is what happened, right? And so they're waking up like, whoa, like deindustrialization, what a mistake. I mean, deindustrialization, the export of jobs, that's all, as my father said, they're predicated on empire and the assumptions that go with it, which is, well, we control the planet. There's no problem. We can just, you know, export these factories and these production processes and just sell them off, in fact, and then just buy at a better price the inputs that we need. Right, all of that is predicated on imperialism, and I think people are only now kind of waking up to. Well, elites are also waking up to the horrors of deindustrialization, even though the American working class is living with the effects of that hardcore for at least 4 decades.
Well, it's you know, I first got exposed to your father when I had a show at KPFK, and they would play, and I'm like, who is this guy? And that's when I realized that this guy was the real deal, and he's, you know, informed a lot of things about how I think about things, and it must be. Do you feel pressure being his son?
I feel pressure. Meet his grandson.
Oh!
Oh wow!
Hi.
Little mini Mike.
Yeah, you're on television. Gotta go.
I like Michael Morini. He's good.
Do I feel pressure? Yeah, I feel pressure, and I felt pressure Um, yeah, I mean, I felt pressure to be productive, to do something useful with my life, and but I also feel tremendously lucky that I had, that I was exposed to. I learned a lot from him just by being around him. To see what it takes to be an intellectual, how you read critically, the sources, how simple stuff like how you keep track of citations, where you store stuff, what it takes to write a book, how you have to like just sit down and crank it out. I mean, all of that is invaluable, and he was a real inspiration. But yeah, it was a lot of pressure to be a son. But all sons feel pressure from their fathers, or if they don't have a father, then they feel pressure from that. People feel pressure for all sorts of reasons. People feel pressure, I think.
Yeah, my parents pressured me. They wanted me to go into real estate, but I kind of shook that off. Come see me on tour. I'll be in Lansing, Milwaukee, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas.
Yes, Michael Parenti was a Marxist scholar, but it doesn't make him Marxist. He just studied Marxism. He was a socialist democrat, a democratic socialist. No different to what Russia is now. Yeah, before you go on about, but socialism, and it's not communism. It's not. Your dictionary might say it's the same thing, but it's not. It's similar, but communism is concentrated power, whereas socialism is power to the people. Socialism is for the benefit of the people. Communism is for the benefit of the power structure. It's the efforts of the common for the country, whereas socialism is the efforts of the common with the fruits of their labour from the country, for the people and the country, and the government's just there to manage it. Where would you rather be right now, in Australia or Russia? We're hopping up and down because they're taking our 22 long rifles off us, and they can own a Kalashnikov. Your argument's mute. Russia is literally fighting the demon. They're fighting the monster. I don't care whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter what ingrained indoctrination that you have in your perception of what socialism is. It's not what you think it is. Just like Muslims aren't what you think they are. They're Western converts. Sorry to say. They're blunt people, yeah, but they're not arseholes like Sam Shimon, who's a devout Christian, and he's just an arsehole. The problem is you label people, generalise people and label them into categories. Oh, it's Muslims, is it? You sure it's just not that group of people? That tiny little fringe group of people that live here in the West? That have completely convoluted and miscued the Quran? Did you know that Islam believes in Jesus Christ? Exactly. Like I said at the start, I would argue that democracy is the greatest experiment to ever fail. And Jesus was the greatest socialist to ever be murdered. That'll bloody rattle your bloody chicken cage, won't it? I don't mean for it to. I haven't insulted anyone. I haven't directed anything towards anyone. If you're insulted by that, sucking on honey. Then, you have the right to be upset at your own feelings. They're your feelings, be responsible for them. Here's an example. There's a receipt. There's a bag. There's a receipt on there. Not have it. Today, what? That's my daughter. Some honey. Lemons. Little thing of Vicks Vapor Rub. And a bottle of Saxon ginger beer. $40. Yeah, capitalist democracy works real well, doesn't it?